It's a difficult question. So this morning there was lots of talk about the politics of the turmoil or the tensions. How does it look for the economics of it? And that's a bit what I will try to cover in this introductory remarks. I will say a few words about how it leads to geo-economic fragmentation and the challenges for Cyprus. I will focus on the cost of geopolitical tensions and fragmentation for economic growth in the markets. And then finally, what can we do about it? My name is Wim van Aken. I work for the European Stability Mechanism, and I'm very happy to be with you here today. So geopolitical tensions, they lead to uncertainty and geo-economic fragmentation. That's the way we look at it from the economic side. It means reversing progress towards global economic and financial integration because of political and military conflicts and the strategic policy decisions that have been made on that front. The rising fragmentation we see distorts trade flows, it disrupts supply chains, and it poses risks to financial stability, a topic very close to our heart. In a way, Frank Elderson in the previous panel, he referred to it as bottlenecks. Now, during the pandemic and during the financial crisis, we saw that there were vulnerabilities to a very interconnected world, and my panelists will speak about that as well. Tensions between major economies, and predominantly China and the United States, they impact our international trade and capital flows. And armed conflicts in Ukraine and the Middle East, they do not only cause tragic human losses, but they also disrupt trade routes, supply chains, and the allocation of resources. And most importantly, they bring about higher uncertainty. Now, in the morning we heard that this is particularly relevant for Cyprus because we've seen this in the context of the war in Ukraine, that Russian sanctions impacted Cyprus significantly. But also Cyprus' proximity to the Middle East makes it quite fitting that we have this conference here today, and I would like to thank the organizers for choosing the topic. It's just about 1,000 days after the war in Ukraine broke out. So what are the economic costs of this? They are evident. So global growth suffers and price pressures emerge. The US-China tension, they impact global trade, including trade with Europe. Now, Europe is a key player in international trade, and geo-economic fragmentation has a higher impact on Europe than it has elsewhere in the world. Now, the losses stem from higher and more volatile energy markets. We see this particularly in the East, in the Middle East, in the Strait of Hormuz can no longer be used as we are used to. We see this through changes in supply chains and commercial relationships that disrupt production structure. So all of a sudden companies need to source products from somewhere else. And this necessitates diversification, as the resilience, meaning the bounce back of enterprises' supply chains, changes drastically. Now, why is this relevant to Cyprus if you look at Cyprus' today's economy? Well, Cyprus is a small open island economy that is more vulnerable to external shocks and geopolitical tensions than most other countries, particularly large countries. And Cyprus has a number of elements where there are vulnerabilities. So for instance, we know that energy and commodity prices in Cyprus have been higher. We know that trade frictions have lowered global risk appetite. And if geoeconomic fragmentation really translates, then this means also higher borrowing costs. Tourism in Cyprus is a key sector for the Cypriot economy and remains subject to sudden reversals due to geopolitical developments. We've also learned from our analysis that geopolitical tensions and geoeconomic fragmentation impact foreign investment flows. Another channel, and we heard about it earlier, is migration. For Cyprus, this is particularly important since it's a leading country for asylum seekers per capita. I believe it's the highest in the European Union. So further escalation of geopolitical conflicts could raise the cost of an increased influx of migrants and strain the resources of the immigration system. That brings me to the point on what can we do about it? Well, it underscores for Cyprus and for the European Union the importance of European integration in the single market in offsetting these external pressures. We've seen this during the financial crisis, we've seen it during the pandemic, and we've seen it during the energy crisis, that common responses from Europe, but also efforts on Cypriot side, can actually help quite a lot in facing these challenges. What really stands out in this instance is the single market. So we learned during the pandemic that the single market actually continued to deliver goods to 450 million consumers and more than 13 million enterprises. But the single market is not complete. And I think both José Manuel Campa from EBA and also the governor spoke about further completion is needed. Obviously, the single market is much bigger than that, and both the reports of Enrico Letta and Mario Draghi testify to that. Banking union, capital markets union, very important in this context because they provide us different and diverse sources of financing at a time that financing may choose different routes. Now, how can Cyprus address this, and what is Cyprus' starting position? And we heard it before at this conference. Cyprus is really well positioned to rising geopolitical tensions and geoeconomic fragmentation. Its strong reform efforts over the last couple of years really benefited the economy. It led to a stronger performance and favorable economic projections. Also, fiscal prudence. One metric that I will mention here is that probably in 2026, Cyprus will reach 60% of debt to GDP ratio. That means its debt is really declining, and that is something a decade ago nobody would have expected. The banking sector is in the strongest position since a decade. Higher rates are boosting earnings and driving solvency ratio above the euro area average. So the starting position that Cyprus has is really, really good. Now, let me conclude. Despite this favorable outlook, Cyprus remains vulnerable in a number of areas, and these are mostly structural at this stage. So Cyprus would do well in maintaining reform momentum, address the vulnerabilities, and harness the benefits of European integration. This includes accelerating the green and digital transition under the Recovery and the Resilience Plan. This plan is not a plan that comes from Brussels. It's a plan that was drawn up and written here in Cyprus in Nicosia. And ownership of the plan is key. At this point, Cyprus is about halfway through. 2 more years remain, and it would be great that Cyprus takes the full benefit of what is in that plan. But there are other EU funds Cyprus can draw on, and also that matters. Finally, Cyprus will benefit from further diversification. And maybe many of you will say, well, this is exactly what we have done. But diversification of its economy would make it resilient to the geoeconomic fragmentation we are seeing now. And we see examples of this in the tourist sector, where the Cypriots really made an effort to diversify not only tourist markets, but also tourist products. We see it on the importance of the ICT sector, concentrated in Limassol. We see it in the efforts to introduce a greener energy mix that also has a variety of sources. This came to the fore in an earlier panel. And we see it also in the internationalization of higher education and healthcare services. So the work is not finished. We should strengthen European integration in the single market for Europe and Cyprus to meet today's challenges, and I think Cyprus can contribute to that. The President mentioned this morning that in 2026, Cyprus would actually hold the EU presidency. I mean, with those challenges and with the prospects of what Cyprus can achieve, we look very much forward to that.
Thank you.